Good morning, guys, and welcome back to the channel. We've successfully got Michael off to work, so now I am going to head on into the office and work on the family tree. And I figured I'd take you along with me today so you can see exactly what I do when I'm researching my ancestors. So why don't you come on with me and make the quick commute from the living room to the office. Okay, here we are. See, didn't take that long. House is less than 900 square feet, so it never takes too long to get from point A to point B. Now let's go ahead and settle in and get ready to do some work. Now, when I'm working on the family tree, sometimes I'll use both computers, sometimes I won't. This, I refer to my little cubicle here as mission control because of all the computers. I used to have more than this set up. I still have more computers, but I don't have them all set up because I need to have room for Trinity. Like I said before in previous videos, when she came into our lives, I converted part of my office over into her room, so I had to rearrange some things. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. We're going to go ahead and work on the family tree today. I'm going to bring up a website on this computer, one or two, and also on this computer. This is my main one that I'll be using to work on the tree. Okay, so I've got both my computers up and running. We've got the Ancestry and Family Tree DNA site on this computer, and we've got Family Search through the Church of Latter-day Saints on that site. Now, as it is with most mysteries, the best thing that you can do is start with what you know. And thankfully, I know a lot because I've been researching my family tree since 1989. I started it when I was pregnant with my son, John, because I wanted him to know his family history. I thought it might be prudent to have that in place, and plus you can actually get scholarships and things based on your genealogy sometimes. So, you know, if you can connect into the Daughters of the American Revolution or maybe the Sons of the American Revolution or anything of that nature. So that was another reason why I decided to start way back then. Basically, back then in the 80s, we were using ancestry charts by hand, and you would handwrite in your pedigree, and then you would print out family group sheets like this and go from there. So I have all of those, and as years went on, everything got computerized. It's all in the computer now. I have various pieces of it on these different websites. Some are open to the public and some are private. So of course the public sites, I put less information than I do on the private sites, which only makes sense with identity theft and all that other stuff that goes on today. But anyway, the only people that we're going to be showing you today are ones that have long since passed away, so I don't think we have to worry too much about identity theft with this anyway. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, for privacy's sake, I'm going to go ahead and cover up the names of the DNA matches because these folks have not, of course, consented to having their stuff on YouTube. So we're not going to show them. When you go into the family tree DNA site that my father used to have his DNA done, it shows you a list like this when you go into the chromosome browser. It'll show you, based on your genetic markers, who they think is a first cousin, a second cousin, so on and so forth. It'll show the shared segments and shared CM, which is centimorgan, and then the longest block. Now, anything they say usually, I want to say under 20, for the shared centimeters is kind of hard to find when you're doing the research. So I like to start with, you know, first cousins first and work my way back. Now, as you can see, this particular first person, I actually already know who that is. I've discovered who that is. He shares 638 centimorgans with my father. The longest strand is 94. So that's well above the 24 mark. And in total, there are 27 segments. Now, all of that tells me something, and that is the information that I use to start tracking down relatives on the other sites that we use. And I'll show you that in just a minute. All right, basically what you do is you go on and you click on the different relatives, the first cousins, second cousins, and you compare them with your DNA strands. Now, the first page that I showed you listed an overall summary of what matches. When you go into the chromosome view, you can break it down into individual segments so you can match and see what segments of yours match up with that particular person, and hopefully that will help you narrow down which surname that person connects to, because, you know, let's face it, everybody gets married, has kids, so there's lots of surnames in your family tree. You're not working with just one, you're working with a whole bunch of them. So when you initially look at these DNA matches, it's going to be hard to figure out where these people fit in, especially if they married into your line, you know, back in the 1700s. They will show up on your DNA matches sometimes. So it just all depends. And by using this chromosome browser, I am able to narrow down where this person might be. And it gets a little tedious, like I said, at times, but I do really enjoy this kind of work, and it can be a little complicated, so it's not for everybody, but for me it fits perfectly with my personality. I actually enjoy it a lot. So I will work on trying to find some DNA matches through this method, and I'll show you the other method that I use before I ever start accessing the other DNA sites. The Family Tree DNA site has this advanced matches section where you can compare X matches, which are generally folks that are way back in your family tree, or use Family Finder, which will give you a hodgepodge collection of relatives. So you have that where you can, you know, have the computer help you compare different DNA segments. We're not going to be using that particular one at the moment, so we're going to go ahead and skip past that and go right to another matching section on this site. Now this page, unlike the other, as you can see, it has the centimorgans and the X matches and the linked relationships down, but it also breaks it down into paternal and maternal DNA. Sometimes there's both DNA, and then there are ones that they're not sure what the heck they are. As you can see, for Dad alone, there's 3,450 people that he matches to, and out of that, they only recognize 165 as being on his father's side and 7 on his mother's. The reason being is they don't know for sure, you know, the further back you go, where these people tie in, and maybe they tie in more than once. You know, you might have people in the 1600s where the two lines crossed, and then, you know, they go on and then cross again 100 or so years later. You just never know. And so you have a lot of generic folks on your DNA list, in addition to the ones that they're clearly paternal and maternal. I will be looking at the paternal side today because I'll be working on the Mason line, and the Mason line is most definitely on my dad's side of the tree. Now when I go in and type the Mason surname into the search box, it breaks down those 3,000 and some odd matches into 40. They assume that 7 are paternal, and I'm going to assume that the other 40 are pretty much paternal too, unless the Mason line married into my grandma's side too, which is entirely possible. I don't know. You know, I've gotten some of these lines back pretty far, and you just never know. They may have double Masons in there somewhere, but hopefully we'll eventually figure that all out. Now, once I have these matches, hopefully the people that have their DNA on here have uploaded a family tree profile. If they have, then I take their family tree profile and I match it to mine and Dad's and see what happens, and go backwards and look for a common ancestor, which sounds easy, but it actually is not in some respects. Now, here's a look at the line that I'll be working on later on today. We start with Rufus Mason. That's where the Mason line is first introduced. He married Bertha Elizabeth Henyon, and you can see Rufus lived from 1862 until 1937. Now, I do know who his parents are. I got that information off of a copy of his birth and death certificates, and you can see it says Thomas Mason and Emily Bailey. Now, the problem that I have with these two lines is that the documentation varies, which is not unusual. On some documents, it lists Thomas's birthplace as England, other places list it as New York. So maybe he was born in one place and they, you know, moved when he was a kid and they just transferred the wrong information on his forms. Maybe he was born at sea. You just never know. So it has been difficult to narrow down more information about Thomas because of that. Plus, some of the historical documents during different periods of American history and of foreign history have been destroyed due to fires, floods, things like that. So there are large gaps in the history of mankind as far as paperwork goes that are often hard to overcome, and I am hoping that the DNA will help me with that, because just because Thomas's paperwork may be missing doesn't mean that his siblings are missing. So I'm hoping that through the siblings, I'm eventually able to connect my way back to where we belong. Now that's where these other sites come in. They have access to records all over the place, whatever has actually been uploaded online, and they also have access to different books that have hopefully biographical information or pedigree information in it, which is the case with the Mason line. Now, our DNA proves that we are connected to a Captain Hugh Mason and a Samson Mason who came from England and Ireland and Canada. Their relatives did, or descendants did, and eventually made their way into America. My problem is I don't know how Thomas connects to them. I know we're genetically connected to those particular Mason lines, but I haven't been able to actually nail down the piece that connects Thomas to Samson and Hugh and the rest of the Masons that are listed in these books. I just know that genetically I'm connected to them. So that is the mystery that I'm working on, and I use the Ancestry site for that, along with the Family Search site, and I'm also looking into using a GEDCOM site that is affiliated with the LDS. The GEDCOM site is in beta testing, so I have not used it yet, and basically people take their DNA from all the different other sites that are out there. 123andMe, I guess it's called, the Ancestry, the Family Tree DNA, all the other ones. People can go online and take these individual reports and upload them into one site and compare them all across a broad spectrum of segments. So once that site is out of beta testing and up and running, I'm going to go ahead and upload all of the different family DNA files that we have and see if we can find some other matches out there that will hopefully help us narrow down the gap on Thomas Mason. Now, I brought up Rufus Scott Mason, and I'm going to go ahead and click on him and get access to his father, Thomas. Once I'm in the profile that my family has worked together to build, then I can go ahead and do a search. You go under the hints button, I'll show you that in just a second, and it brings up a search screen that you can use to try to find documents about your long lost relative. And as you can see right now, there are no hints available. Now that doesn't stop me. I don't actually need Ancestry or these different sites to find the hints for me. I'm just going to go ahead and search different documents from the areas he used to live to see if I can find out more. But before I do that, I will use their search function just to see if there is something that may not have come up earlier. When you first hit the search button, it will bring you up this page. It shows you the documents you already have on file. They're in yellow. As you can see, we already have 6 in the tree. And then it will show you other documents that may be of potential value to you. And you just have to go through each document and see if they are related to your relative. Now, as you can see, this particular Thomas Mason is not mine, because mine married Emily Bailey. And to my knowledge, he only had one spouse. So the one there that you see, Thomas Mason, spouse Jane Mason, is likely not my guy. So we're going to go ahead and keep looking and see if we can figure out this mystery.